YouTube. Today, well, Lucas posted a video. Chat wanted me to react to it because, my chat is obsessed with Lucas. This was not my decision. Anyways, let's go.
A very common opinion in the community when it comes to battle cats is that metal enemies are easily the worst trait in the game. There's a lot of arguments to be made.
Annoying trait. I've never thought of them as really difficult, but more so annoying than anything.
But generally the idea is that metals are too
I have seen
reliant
some 3
on
patch
luck
notes.
to beat, and therefore is just overall an unfair
They
trait
really
when it
aren't
comes to the
nowadays.
game. Even though I think that metals are actually one of the most power crap traits in the game.
Yep.
Before we get into
Power
that,
crap
first let's
traits.
have an overview on metal enemies and their gimmicks. Metal enemies are a type of trait in the game where visually, generally would be having metallic body parts and glowing green eyes. All metal enemies share a gimmick, which is the ability of Metal Body. The Metal Body ability allows enemies to have an extremely high defense where any hits from your cat units will only
I wonder if
do
Koopa Luga will be mentioned. I doubt it because that's an Uber, but like...
1 damage to the metal's health. The only way to bypass this is if your units deal a critical hit. A cat unit's critical hit will deal double damage and bypass the Metal Body ability, delivering the full double damage. While this may sound like metal enemies can only be killed through critical hits, this is not entirely true because some
Nowadays, thanks to Metal Killer.
extremely low health, low enough for them to be beatable without using critical hits at all. There are
That
metal
too.
enemies that have tanky health, but they are also generally designed to be easily counterable with cats with critical hitters. On the other hand, cat units with critical hits are also
Izanagi
usually
for metals.
balanced around metal enemies in mind. A majority of critical hitter units actually have lower damage than usual,
Hey, look,
making them
Bravana.
usually not really viable outside of metals. There are a couple of exceptions, but usually those that are better against metals are going to have lower overall damage outside of metals, while the ones that are good outside of metals and have critical hits will usually have lower chance to crit, making them unreliable against metal enemies.
Usually.
There are a couple of handful exceptions, but these are very rare cases. The thing about critical hits is that critical hits
Maharaja's peak for metals.
meaning that when you are fighting a tanky metal enemy that requires critical hits,
There was
you
Nanaho.
are not
There was in fact
able to do
Nanaho.
any significant damage towards these enemies unless you get lucky with critical hits most of the time.
It didn't even one-shot the
This is
seal.
where most of the complaint stems from.
The
The
2% didn't even one-shot, bruh. That's why I don't think Cameraman's crit is Omega busted, because people overestimate how much damage he does. And so, like, you're assuming it's 3-star, and I'm assuming I don't fucking care. I'd rather just use Catasaurus, because if it's 1 Sir Metal Seal, you can use meatshields properly to, you can stack Catasaurus just like you can Cameraman. Cameraman's only benefactor over Catasaurus is general usage, but even then, you can still use Catasaurus, like, you can use the combo of Minisaurus to not only be general usage, but to benefit your entire squad. And you can also use them both, so why not? But I'm just saying, crit combo on Cameraman is not busted. It's good, not busted.
Is that because they have to rely on RNG to beat certain metal enemies. But in my opinion, I think this problem is heavily exaggerated a lot of the times.
It's mainly because of early game players. People have PTSD from early game, and that's why they over-exaggerate just how scary metals can be. It's simply because of, early game being a pain in the ass because of, acquiring things. Lucas is not a little girl, no. That's just the thing. That's just an image.
But I do think that metals are, quote-unquote, one of the hard traits to fight against. They are hard, but I do not think that they are unfair. What's the difference? Well, the way I see it, unfair...
They're unique, that's for sure.
...like battle cats means that the trait is badly designed in a way that it doesn't reward good strategies. It purely relies on luck and luck only, and your gameplay skills or your lineup building or
Nanaho is not easily accessible.
Is not really rewarded
Chat.
in the process.
Lucas knows that, but chat, you don't. Fucking Eve, bruh. Just let me watch my video. Let me watch my Lucas.
That is unfair, but I disagree with this notion. I do not think that metals are unfair, but I do think that metals are hard. And by that, I mean metals are harder to understand in the sense of strategy game that is Battle Cats. It is trickier to understand metals compared to the other traits in the game and to learn on how to counter metals properly. But understanding the metal enemies and having good lineup and having good strategy, good gameplay will absolutely reward you with an easy win towards majority of metal stages. But hold on, you might say, you've just explained.
Damn, y'all got Akuma?
Clearly RNG. Plus, there's so many people complaining about metals, so there's definitely some truth to this to an extent. Well, here's the thing.
Did somebody just say Akuma Lion is better? Brother, what? Okay,
Metal
I
selection
should
is
stop
one of the
reading
harder
chat, I
traits to
swear.
understand, and if you don't really understand metals, then yeah, you will be stumped by it because this is a strategy game in the end. Not understanding your enemies in a strategy game do generally lead you to a defeat. The thing about metals is that metals utilize knowledge that are rarely used. Anti-metals and critical hitters, like I mentioned earlier, are almost purely used on metals and nothing else. Units with critical hitters that are good against metals are not really usable anywhere else outside of metals.
Do you think that Wendy benefits? Yes, every Uber benefits from levels. No matter how big or small, they do benefit because damage is a thing.
Metals. And units that are good against other traits are not really usually good against metals. So the units that you use against metal enemies are a subset of units that are rarely used, and therefore, people don't usually understand the power of their own anti-metal units. Metal enemies are also pretty rare, so
Oh,
people
more from the levels or the ultra form? Probably levels because of survivability and damage. Because here's the thing about Wendy is that Wendy's damage doesn't actually Wendy doesn't actually you know, Wendy doesn't get a damage increase. The main I will say Wendy's range increase is really good, but I don't like are we considering level 50 to level 60 or are we considering level 60 to level 60? Level 30 to level 60. Is that like what because from 30 to 60 I'd say the levels benefit more. But if you're talking about 50 to 60, the range easily.
don't generally try to bother to understand how to counter certain metal enemies properly, but most of the time
Stop
the
doing a
problem does
prediction. I want
come
to
from
watch
not
the
really
video,
understanding your
bruh.
own anti-metals, not really understanding how to use your anti-metals, and most especially is how to build your lineup against metal stages.
45 to
So
60
let's talk
is
about
range, but y'all making it hard for me to actually watch the fucking video, bruh. Pause more or less than 10 times.
especially
Obviously,
is
you
how
know
to
the answer
build
to
your
that.
lineup against metal stages. So, let's talk about metal knowledge. The main three things to understand are the enemies, the cats, and lineup building. The easiest one to understand is probably the enemies because battle cats very, very rarely ever creates new metal enemies. They basically use the same like 3 metal enemies over
Bet
and
I'm not
over
doing a
and only
prediction.
add like 1 or 2 new metal enemies every like 2 or 3 years. Most of the
Yeah, it's
metal enemies
very
that we
rare,
have are event enemies that rarely appears, and I don't want to
unfortunately.
get too deep into that, so I'm just gonna touch on the few that are very common. If you're clicking on this
There's so
video,
many
chances
cake
are you at least
enemies.
already know about the main metal enemies, but I'm just gonna go through them real quick anyways, just to be sure. The 3 most common metal enemies that you're going to face are Metal Doge, Super Metal Hippo, and Sir Metal Seal. There are a couple of other special metal enemies that you might want to look out for, which is Cyberface and Coronium. Metal Doge is the quote-unquote weakest of the main 3, but not really, having the least amount of health and is a metal enemy that's generally balanced around being able to be killed through pure brute force and not fully needing critical hits to actually beat.
Wait, who the fuck? Earlier, somebody mentioned something about the fact that you would use cameraman for things like hordes of metal doges. But since when do you actually need to crit metal doges? I think you're getting more from the cameraman stacking their area attack than the actual area attack and crit that you get from cameraman in that aspect. New trade idea, cake? Honestly, that's a
Despite
good
that,
hear me
Metal
out.
Doge is still a very threatening presence in majority of the stages it's in, because it still takes a good while to
And why not Cat Tornado? That is also fair.
actually kill a higher magnification Metal Doge without using
Royal
critical
Guard
hits.
single
On
targeting,
top
isn't
of
he?
that, a high magnification Metal Doge also deals quite a lot of chip damage. If you're not able to dispatch Metal Doges quickly with critical hits, they could stack up and chew through your defenses
Yeah, and cameraman's not
really
good for that.
fast. While it's not really
Cat
nice to
Tornado
use
is
critical
ideal.
hits on them, you might still want to bring them once in a while. If you let them live too long in certain stages, they could stack up and push way too hard.
Fast
Next up
attack,
on
I
the list is
guess.
Super Metal Hippo. This is one of the 2 main tankiest metal enemies that you're going to face. Super Metal Hippo has a moderately high HP, high enough to not get killed by most.
When they push too hard, but using cameraman is a bad pick for mining. Here's the thing, right? If they're pushing too hard, your camera stack is not gonna be big enough to consistently get or reliably get a crit. So like that's even worse. Like, brother, like the only way you're going to reliably get a crit from cameraman is if you have a huge stack of them. And that's not going to happen if you're getting pushed by a bunch of metal doges.
Single random critical hits, and basically quote-unquote requires critical hits to
If you're
actually
going
beat.
to use cameraman on anybody, use cameraman on Super Metal Hippo. That's probably cameraman's best targeted metal enemy.
Super Metal Hippo doesn't actually deal that much damage, but it does have the ability to knock your units back. On top of that...
And the reason why I say that is because Super Metal Hippo is actually very unlikely to kill your cameraman stack. So all he'll do is, thanks to his knockback, he'll just wind up getting the stack bigger. And so, you know, yeah. Last boss in
While Super
Soba,
Metal Hippo
nah.
isn't too tanky, it has a very high amount of knockback counts.
I love
Weaker critical
Siege of Metal Hippo, by the way.
hits on
Lucas
Super Metal
trait?
Hippo
Nah.
would constantly reposition it without actually dealing that much damage. So the general counter towards Super Metal Hippo is by utilizing critical hitters that deals a big amount of damage in just one hit. The last
such as Cameraman
is Sir Metal Seal. This is probably most players' nightmare, the one metal enemy that basically everybody complains about. Sir Metal Seal is essentially a juggernaut of a unit. It has a very high health for a metal enemy and a very high damage output, especially in higher magnification.
I think something worth considering is that Sir Metal Seal isn't very slow either. So Sir Metal Seal also just pushes very hard, not just because of the damage or the HP, but it's also the low knockback count and not too slow of a speed. Like, it's not fast by any means, but it's faster than One Horn. So, if you think One Horn's push, well, Sir Metal Seal is that on steroids. Which One Horns really aren't a threat, but I was like, maybe Old Horn or something. I don't fucking know.
Sir Metal
Examples.
Seal is one hell of a tanker and generally takes many strong critical hits to actually...
Bedside bet. Not everybody has Kaguya. But you could also use Puppet Master, but that's only single targeting, and it's also very RNG reliant. So,
dispatch. But the main weakness that Sir Metal Seal has is that Sir Metal Seal has one of the lowest range when it comes to metal enemies, and therefore is very susceptible to being debuffed, just like most Cyclone enemies.
True.
Keep in mind that
so yeah, Puppet Master is still good though.
Have short range. Super Metal Hippo having the highest range of them all, and even then is barely.
Did you really just say Axel is a budget Kaguya? No, they have very no. No, Kaguya is spammable. Axel doesn't he have LD? And then he also can freeze and weaken, I think, right? So like they're not even comparable for the most part, other than they're slow. But I mean, Kaguya is slow is better.
Majority of the anti-metal or critical hitter units that we have always outranges them. So range might not really matter against these enemies aside from very specific interactions. The other two metal enemies that you're going to want to look out for are Cyberface and Coronium. Both of these are waivers and actually have a very strong presence on the field.
Okay, so I want to go back to I want to go back 10 seconds for just a second. Notice how they're not overdoing critters, but they're doing status. I think this right here is the reason why so many people overestimate how difficult metals are. It's because they rely too much on critters and not enough on status. I think that's what it is. Not enough people actually use status on metals because they just see Hoop Cat and they see Puppet Master and they're like, oh, these guys suck. They're just Cyclone units. Blah, 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 blah. Like, I think they overlook the fact that statusing metals, such as Sir Metal Seal, and honestly, I mean, obviously, most common status doers won't be able to hit Super Metal Hippo, and metal doges are either not a threat or there's so many of them that without area attack you're not going to be able to status them well. But Sir Metal Seal is probably the #1 metal threat, and yet people, I think they just try to overwhelm it with crits and damage rather than using status. So. And now that Metal Killer exists, that makes it quite a bit easier.
Matter against these enemies aside from very specific interactions. The other two metal enemies that you're going to want to look out for are Cyberface and Coronium.
Here's the thing, Kaguya is mainly good just because it's her first form. Even without Metal Killer, Kaguya is really good anti-metal. You don't need the Dark Eyes for it. Like, Kaguya is a really good statuser because doesn't Kaguya outrange Super Metal Seal or Super Metal Hippo? So all three of the common metal enemies in the game are just pretty much perma-slowed by a Kaguya stack. That's not even that big. Like, Kaguya is really good
these
still.
Are waivers and actually have a very strong presence on the field. Their waves are very powerful and they need to be dealt with as soon as possible, but luckily they also both have very small amount of health. Any weak critical hits towards them will pretty much always kill them. It's also very possible to
$1 million cat.
Enough. Also, Coronium is pretty much the only metal enemy in this list that actually have a range. Is actually able to outrange majority of the anti-metal and critical hitters that we have when it comes to the no Uber catalog anyways, so his presence is always notable. But most of the times there's very easy setup to just kill Coronium by isolating him alone, so even then, most stages that he's in is
I'll
usually
try
not
not to
that
move the
bad.
captions
So
around
then
too
let's move
much,
on
but I
towards
think this is fine.
anti-metal cat units. Now, okay, I know that I said that anti-metal knowledge is important, but there's a lot of anti-metal and critical hitters out there. If I were to go
True.
and review every single one of them, it can take a very long time. I'm going to still try to go through them because I think it's important to do so, but I'll try to not make it too long. So when it comes to no Uber anti-metals, most of the cats that we have are actually stage drop from Cyclones, and a lot of these Cyclone stages are early to mid-game stages. This even includes their Rat and Revenge stage to unlock their true forms. Cyclone stages also cycles every week, so you won't be able to miss them easily. Point is, these units are
Or
extremely
if you miss them easily, then that's just a you problem.
By the time you're somewhere in mid-game or late SOL, there's very little excuse to not have basically majority or all of them. There's two types of units to counter metals, critical hitters and anti-metals. Anti-metals includes things like anti-metal debuffers. The main ones that drop from Cyclones are Hoopcat.
Honestly, Mochi's underrated as fuck. I've actually used Mochi quite a lot, and I've had good usage with Mochi.
And Mochi, which does freeze, slow, and weaken
I actually
defense.
really like. I like Mochi more than Hoop. I like Mochi more than Hoop, and honestly, maybe even more than Puppet Master as well.
All of these three that I mentioned are short-range debuffers, and they're all amazing in their own rights. Hoop being the one with freeze, which has the best effect out of the three. Puppet Master
but worst RNG
is ironically the fastest one out of all of them, and also have a very long slow debuff. While Mochi with the weaken is the most consistent one out of them all, especially in true form. There's little reason to want to debuff weaker metal enemies like metal doges, since it's usually better to just kill them rather than try to debuff them. But all three of these debuffers are very, very powerful to counter the tanky metal enemies, especially Sir Metal Seal. Having one or two of these debuffers in your team can lock down Sir Metal Seal hard and can turn that enemy from an actual threat
is he even meat shielding?
basically a sitting duck. Mochi is also really good against Super Metal Hippo because remember, Super Metal Hippo has an innate knockback ability, and Mochi's weakening effect allows your units to survive significantly longer because you can abuse Super Metal Hippo's knockback ability to save your
Chat, let's see. I'm willing to bet like I don't know, $5. Does he mention his video talking about weekend? Does he talk about it? Why are you saying my name? Why are you saying my name?
own unit. I've also talked a little bit about how Weaken is an amazing ability that
I literally paused it right before. I paused it right before he started talking about it.
look into in my previous video, so go watch that if you're interested. There's also talented Lollycat. Lollycats have a talented granted slow metal ability. If you know Sanzo, talented Lolly is basically that.
I know my predecessor too well. Lucas the Fifth knows Lucas the Fourth too well.
Against metals, but so much better in terms of range and cooldown. It's an absurdly good anti-metal unit against a group of metal enemies, and the safe standing range helps a lot when against a high ranger supports or high range metal enemies like Coronium. Aside from anti-metal debuffers, there's also anti-metal meat shields, which mainly just consist of Modern Cat and Noodles, but even then Noodles kind of sucks.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say this too. Noodles, I have never had good usage with Noodles. Their crit chance is low and their health is dog shit. You're never gonna use Noodles. Even before you get Modern Cat, I don't think you would ever use Noodles. Like, I don't like. You're better off using even like Craze Tank. Like even without Manic Eraser, I think Craze Tank is still better.
So just consider Modern Cat. Like any other specialized meat shields, Modern is great when the stage only consists of the trait it counters, but falls in effectiveness if there's other traits in the stage. Now, moving on to crit units. I can divide crit units.
He's not talking about collab units, or maybe this was planned way before, but there is a new meat shield that is comparable to Future whenever it comes to metal tanking, but it's not insane resist. So it's much more usable generally. It is Shadow. Except I still don't think Shadow would do great in general scenarios, but it would be better than Future. If you get a high enough level at least. I'm not a budget Lucas, chat. I'm not a budget Lucas because me and him do very different things. Do we? Don't answer that. I'm my own guy, totally.
A high frequency but low damage crit, a high damage but low frequency crit, and a general crit. This is kind of more of a spectrum though. Some units are leaning slightly more.
This is the only spectrum I'll ever be on.
To the one
well,
side
care about. Maybe I shouldn't say that joke. I take back that joke.
Than the other. High frequency, low damage crit units are best used to
I'm probably on a lot of spectrums.
or any metals with low health. For example, Little Doges, Coronium, and Cyberface, which tends to get one-shotted by any crits. They're terrible against Super Metal Seal and Super Metal Hippo as they barely
Stop
do.
talking. Why are you so obsessed with Nanaho, bruh? Why are you so obsessed with Nanaho? We get it, Nanaho's good, but that's an outlier. Nanaho is one of the few units in the game that has good damage and good crit chance. Shut the fuck up. It's a generalization.
It's even worse on Super Metal Hippo as they would knock them back often, which only increases their own survivability. Common meta units in this category would be Huricat and Aku Researcher. I would also count $1 Million and Felix Duke Cat to fall in this category because they have guaranteed crits that can be used to snipe down Coronium and Cyberface, but not a good enough damage to deal with Super Metal Hippo and Super Metal Seal. On the other side of the spectrum is low frequency but high damage crits. They are best used to counter the tanky metal enemies, being Sarseal and
Lufa-Lan
is always amazing against Super Metal Hippo because you don't want to knock it back too much. Common meta units in this category would be Waitress Cat, Craze Maneko, and Summer Naneko. All three of these units have guaranteed crit chance.
I don't think I really use Summer Naneko. Maybe I should use Summer Naneko a little more.
By the way, they do have a relatively long time between attacks, but the guaranteed crit chance and the very high damage output that they give makes them an amazing asset all around against metal enemy. Talented Cameraman Cat and Island Cats also fall into this category, though Island is not really a unit I would generally recommend against metal stages.
Fair.
Cameraman and the Island Cats have very low crit chance, but a very high damage output if the crit actually happens. And it's very nice on Cameraman.
Brother, Marine. Not everybody has a 1 in 300 legend rare, alright? Especially Nanaho, because that's not even like a fest. That's actually probably the least common legend rare out of the non-technically collab legend rares. Like, aside from Akuma and Dark Zeus, that's probably one of the rarer ones, just because Monster Gals is so, like, out there. You know what I mean? Like, you know, anyone could get it? Yeah. Just like anyone could get Dazzly. Anyone could get Izanagi. Anyone could get Balrog. And in some cases, anyone could get Sniper the Deadeye. Like, you know, like, just because it's a possibility doesn't mean it happens, alright? So, shut up, Bed. Because by that logic, it's, actually, it's 1 in 333.3333333333333. Do you really want me to do that? And so on.
And a spammable cooldown, so a single crit from her can deal with a group of metal enemies.
You have only most? Oh my god, you don't have something I just said because it's not guaranteed for you to have every unit in the game. Oh my god, crazy.
At once. Units with the Metal Killer ability also generally falls into this category, because Metal Killers, which cuts down metal enemies through their health percentage, is generally better.
Nice miss, Jackhammer. Sodom? Is this?
Finally, there are.
That's a Halloween Sodom, right? Halloween Sodom mentioned?
General crit units, which is kind of the in-between of both of these. General crits can counter most enemies in most situations. They don't crit too often, but they crit often enough to be able to deal with weaker
I love Curry.
They don't deal super high damage, but they deal enough damage to make a dent on the tankier metal enemies. The common units that fall into this category are Catasaurus and Curry Cat. These are your go-to if you don't know what to bring or if you need to compress your lineup against multiple metal enemies. Most uber critical hitters also
and Catalyte provides you with Minisaurus. So not only will you probably want to use Catasaurus if you don't know how to handle the metals on a stage, but you'll also probably want to bring it even if you do know how to handle them, because research combo on things like Curry and Cameraman is still very usable, like very valuable. So Catasaurus is probably going to be your most used critter, just because of the combo, to be honest.
go into this category. Although, like I said, this is kind of a spectrum, so it does heavily depend on which Ubers. But yeah, that's about it for anti-metal units. I do need to say that almost every unit that I've mentioned are very, very powerful units.
Curry is really
we have
good.
An amazing selection of anti-metal and critical hitters that are super powerful if you know how to use them. Hurricat is always amazing against group of metal doges. Hoopcat is really, really, really powerful against our metal seal. Curry is an amazing range stackable critical hitter, plus a guaranteed chance to slow, so it's both a critical
it's
hitter
guaranteed?
and
I didn't realize that.
Waitress is amongst one of the absolute best critical hitter units in the game, despite her long attack animation and attack rate.
They're not talking about Ubers, Marine. They're not talking about Ubers and Legends. What curry do you like? I've actually never had curry. Like, I've never had the food curry. I like the cat. That's what I was talking about. I've never had actual curry. I don't live in a place where that's a common thing. Eat curry? It's not in the US. People don't eat curry in the US.
Amazing damage and guaranteed crit chance allows her to be absurdly powerful on majority of the metal stages that we have. And the fact that her crit chance is guaranteed means that you don't even need to rely on RNG to make her work. And finally is Catasaurus, especially with talents, is able to work on basically almost every situation and will always perform at least decently.
Is he gonna mention the research combo?
Not to mention Catasaurus and Little
There it is.
Cat are part of the Minisaurus combo, which is a research combo. Not only that these two units are extremely easy to slot in any metal stages, but research combo is just an amazing.
I said it wasn't common, Marine. Okay, people really need to pay more attention to what the fuck I'm saying. People really need to understand what the fuck I'm saying. It is not common in the US. I'm fairly certain I said that almost word for word. Curry is not common here. Alright? And not every state is the same. You never said common? I'm pretty sure I did. But we get it. You said they don't. I said multiple things. I didn't just say one line and shut up about curry. I said multiple things. Also, hello, Kikino. But it's not common, and also not to mention different states have different cultures. So there may be culture in one state and there's no curry in another, or like there might be a lot of curry in like New York and not a lot of curry in Nevada. You know, like yeah, metals are easy, by the way, Kikino.
Combo all around. I have a video talking more in depth about research combo. Go
self promo. Which go ahead. By the way, YouTube, if you haven't already, fucking support Lucas, not me. He deserves it more.
Watch that if you're interested. Speaking of combos, there's also crit combos. Crit combos gives a flat crit chance to the critical hitter units in your team. Only 1% bonus at small and 2% bonus at medium. Meaning that units that already have a naturally high chance to crit don't really benefit from this combo. But if your units rely on low crit chance with constant...
Oh yeah, this is Lucas. This is Lucas. Oh wait, chat probably can't. Chat. Hold up. Give me a second. Goodbye, chat. It's a Lucas video. It was posted a day ago. You're sorry for calling me 100% racist? It's fine. It was a joke, right? As long as it was a joke, it's fine. I'm not racist at all.
Do amazing things to certain units on
sorry for the visuals. I'm not an honorary Lucas the Fifth. That is entirely a joke. I don't think Lucas even remembers coming into chat and saying that.
All the crit combos we have so far always features anti-metals and critical hitters.
Well, wait, I'm just curious. I'm from the US. 90% of you guys are not from the US. How could I be racist? Just curious.
Great because of the 2% extra crit chance effect, but the crit units that comes with it are also pretty solid. Maneko, despite her terrible cooldown and mediocre crit chance, is basically free.
Oh, does Sakura Sonic have 2 combos?
Have an amazing nuke damage potential if the crit actually...
Okay, not Lucas the 6th. If anything, I'm the 5th, alright? Not the 6th. Get it right. 90%? Well, Grum's from the US. I don't know about all the others. But like... I don't know where you guys are from, but I can tell you this. A majority of you guys are not from the US. You're from the US and there is no curry here? Absolute cinema. I'm right. Who would have thought?
long attack animation and unsafe range, has the best attack rate for a critical hit
Damn, I
that
didn't
is
realize she had two.
guaranteed. And the crit damage is
I'm
also
not from the
very
US. A
high.
majority of you
She
guys
can
are not from the US. I'm just saying.
work for both
He is not.
nuking
No
tanky
apology
metal
video is
enemies
necessary.
and also taking down weaker peons one by one. I would say she's actually very underrated when it comes to critical hitters. So as you
True.
can see, our selections of anti-metal units are very amazing. There's always a unit for every situation, and those units are all amazing at their job. But you might
People
say,
just
well,
don't
okay,
want
I
to
kind
change
of
what they
already knew
use.
about all of that though. I use Hurricane for metal doges, I use the nuclear units for Star Metal Seal, and I use crit combos, but metals are still really frustrating because
Marine, I think we're all joking when we say that there is or isn't. There, in some places there are curry in the US, some places there aren't. Just shut up about it.
all luck. Well, let me go back to the previous point again. Just knowing about metal enemies and anti-metal units is just part of the battle. There's still one more important thing to do, and that is lineup building. Your units still need to work as a team, and having to counter
I don't
one
make
metal
curry
enemy in
either.
the stage does
My
not
family has never made
remove
it.
that metal enemy from the
Prediction,
stage.
what do you
Most
want the
hard metal
prediction to be,
stages are
Kikino?
often mixed traits, so your team need to work together as the enemy team works together as well. You might know how to counter the metal enemies, but can you counter the metal enemies alongside their supports? When you lose against these stages, do you think, oh, I just need better luck, and I need more critical hitters, and I need more anti-metals? Is that your line of thinking? But here's the thing. Let me tell you a very interesting
Are metals
secret.
easy? That's not how predictions work. You know what? Oh, it's just gonna be another coin flip prediction, bruh. YouTube, I'm sorry you have to deal with this. Here's the video.
A wisdom passed from generations to generations. The sacred text that the ancients have used as their true counter against metals. Are you ready to learn the ultimate truth? Well, the secret tech to line up building against metal enemies is sometimes you need less anti-metals on your team. Sometimes the answer is to bring something else that are not critical hitters or anti-metals.
I said true really loudly. I'm sorry, neighbors. YouTube, can you please load?
You just gotta bring something else for the other enemies in the stage, like bringing waivers or LD units to abuse the metal enemy's tankiness, which is a very
I love
strategy
LD on
stages,
metals.
by the way. There's a lot of stages where you can just ignore bringing critical hits or anti-metal units because you actually want to keep certain metal enemies alive to abuse their tankiness by stacking up piercing units to demolish everything.
I'm gonna admit something, chat. I may or may not have used Dazzly on Golden Tower floor 50.
Behind them. Sometimes having
Maybe, may or may not.
actually makes the stage easier if you know how to abuse them. Hell, sometimes the answer to metal stages is to just bring more meat shields. Sometimes people are too focused on bringing crits that they forgot to actually defend their crit units with proper defense.
And then they're also too busy bringing crits to bring support.
Obvious, but dude, your crit units will never land a crit if they can't land an attack at the first place. Oh no, I lost because my Catosaurus never crits. It's all luck. You kept sending Catosaurus to his death. You're expecting his corpse to crit or something? Wait, now that you mentioned it, maybe that's not a bad idea, actually. Anyways, point is, there's a lot more creative ways you can do to help win metal stages, aside from just hoping for dumb luck. I asked you guys in a community post about which metal stages you guys have trouble with
March to death, 100%.
I tried them myself and tried to get my hands on these stages and figure out what's generally the best way to counter them, and legitimately?
I think March to Death is like, not even objectively at this point, subjectively the hardest metal-based stage. Like, or metal, like, focus stage. I think it's just a fact at this point. Like, anybody, if you ever ask anybody what the hardest metal stage is, unless they got stuck on Bionic Seaweed and they haven't made it past it, March to Death is, like, the hardest.
Majority of these stages answers are just more meat shields. Yes, this includes 3-star total myopia, which is arguably one of the hardest metal stages.
Time to flip it. I'll do it after the video.
Different lineups
I'll flip the coin for the prediction after the video.
I had against this stage is when I just add an extra eraser cat on my team. Not about putting more crits, not about putting more anti-metals.
After the video.
I just added a second eraser cat in my team, and I get a very consistent result. So yeah, lineup building really
I think a lot of people also, like, including me, don't like using Ricewell because he's expensive and requires NP. But for metals, like for metal, Super Metal Hippo, he really doesn't require NP because Super Metal Hippo doesn't do much damage. So Ricewell works well enough at just like level 50, not even talented, because you don't need to talent him for immunity to knockback. And then a lot of metal stages, I think, tend to have like a lot of, you know, that. But like, chat, is the video like really loud? Like, is it like? Can you not hear me when the video is playing? But anyway, yeah, like Rice Ball works great here. He doesn't require NP to be used against Super Metal Hippo, but it does benefit.
On top of that, complaints about RNG is a little flimsy.
Insurance Orb sucks ass because all those new talent orbs are gonna be a pain in the ass to grind, bruh. Like, I'm not gonna do that.
Since,
I'll
okay,
pass.
number one.
Oh wait, it's not even grinding. It's just wait, is it grinding? What is it? I don't
Some
fucking
metal
know.
stages, you
Video's
even
too quiet?
have to
Okay.
rely on RNG if you don't want to. Remember, there are crit units that have guaranteed chance to crit. Chris Moneko and Waitress both have guaranteed crits, and they're both really, really good crit units. Summer the Neko is also really, really good. If you're tired of relying on RNG, then don't. You can choose not to.
Dojo
All
rewards? I would, well, here's the thing, right? I think S is kind of like necessary for it to be really good, or not even really good, just okay. Like it's not necessary. I'm not gonna be trying to get like S on that and shit.
very, very, very good. They often even outperform majority of the crit units that we have. But sure, maybe sometimes these units don't really work too well against certain metal stages. So point number 2 is that you know what you're playing? This whole game is RNG, dude. Like there's so many things that rely on
It's
RNG.
literally a gambling game. This game is literally a gambling game. It is a gotcha game, aka you gamble for everything. Don't complain about RNG with metals. Although I will say I have complained about RNG with metals before. I am a new man.
Remember where you got your anti-metal units from? From Cyclone stages. Cyclone stages are literally RNG stages. There's a lot of RNG
That's
stages
also
in
fair.
the game. Hell, some of the worst RNG base stages in the game are not even metal stages. I'll Be Bug is one of the absolute most luck-based stage in the game that I have had the displeasure to play. And there's no metal enemies here. This stage is so heavily reliant on luck. And yet I see more people complaining about March to Death when this stage exists. Ah yes, I love when my Rocat gets permanently slowed by the professor.
You want to know why that is, Lucas? You want to know why that is? It's because you can more easily Uber carry this stage than you can March to Death. That's why. Because this is harder to Uber carry on. That's why. Or this is easier to Uber carry on. Sorry. That's why more people talk about March to Death in this fucking
and then
stage.
my Rocat never lands its weaken effect. Awesome, I love that. To top it all off, dude, this is a gacha game. Like majority of the units that you have are obtained from luck. The gacha.
Lucas agrees with me, Lucas. Or Lumeza, sorry. Lumeza, I know your name is Lucas, but your name is Lumeza. What am I saying? Your real name is Lucas, but your name is Lumeza because, you know, there's kind of another Lucas in the Battle Cats world, and you are not him. But yeah. He agrees with me. Gotcha is for RNG, not for C tracking.
Worse compared to fighting metal enemies. And you might be like, well, I can still choose which banner I want to roll.
I also have Dazzly without C tracking.
More effective with my cat food or rare ticket spending. Well, guess what? You can also do a lot of things to change your luck in metal stages too. When losing to metal stage, it does feel easier to blame pure luck rather than trying to understand what you can do to change the outcome. I mean, I get it. I get why you would think that way. But in reality, there's actually quite a lot of things you can do that factors into whether you win or lose against a metal stage. In general, you actually have a lot more impact.
That is a cursed.
More to input. You may not be.
I don't like the way that it's just all spread out. Like I don't know. After all my years of playing Battle Cats with either one row of 5 or 2 rows of 5, I don't think I can look at this and not just think of it as cursed down here.
Be able to control how luck works, but you can make a lot of
Urz is not good for Zero Field. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that right now.
To maximize your luck. And with good enough planning, with good enough strategizing, with good enough knowledge, you can basically ensure a victory. That's just how life is. You may not be able to fully manipulate how luck in the world works or how others will plan their day.
Sherwin Williams schedule.
Shut up, Sherwin. But yeah, Urz is good for a lot of behemoths, not Zero. No, Urz is not good for Zero Field.
Top most of the food chain of society, but even when you're a big shot, the biggest of them all, you can't control everything. And no matter how big you get, you'll never reach true freedom in the world. But that doesn't mean your actions are worthless. You may not be able to control how the wind blows or what the weather will be or who you will meet.
Well, of course, it's always like Lucas to turn something Battlecast related into something philosophical.
meet in
Of
school,
course.
or who you will meet in work, or who would approach you with a job opportunity, who would look at your general direction.
Imagine you go to work, some sort of new hire comes around, and you're like, "Damn, my RNG today is good," or it's like bad or whatever, depending on the new guy. Like, damn, my RNG, crazy.
And fall in love with you. And it's easy to blame other people or blame the world for how people act towards you. And it's easy to act like we never got a say in how things work in life. But if you look into yourself, we have a lot more power than you think. If you dress nicer, if you start greeting other people more, if you spend more time learning how to make a better CV, if you start to open up
That's
more
a
to
cute
yourself,
image. I
open up the
love
world
that.
to your family, if you decide to spend less time doom scrolling Twitter or TikTok or whatever, or maybe set a strict timer on social medias, then the world may be kinder to you. Hell, even if you can't do anything to change the weather, you can still bring an umbrella to make sure you don't get soaked. Even if you can't change certain things, the way you respond to it can be changed. You have
What is it? Adaptation? No. Adapting. Adaption? No. Adapting. Marine, you really need to do Discord if you're gonna links to it,
power
because
within you.
I have links
Strengthen your
blocked.
will, strengthen your resolve, and know that through determination, we all have the power to
Oh,
shape
that Earthbound, this Earthbound game is only in JP? That's cool. I've actually given the original Earthbound a try, I think. It's good. Like, the action style RPG of Earthbound is actually really good.
world around us. We can't shape everything perfectly to what we imagine, and we can't shape everything all at once, but we can still shape the future, kneading the clay of humanity bit by bit. It's going to take a lot of self-reflection, and it's going to be painful. You might fail a lot of times, you're going to doubt yourself a lot. I mean, frankly, I have my own doubts too, but despite that, I do hope that my words can move the world ever so slightly to the direction more positive. I'm still struggling myself on a day-to-day basis, but games are not fun without a little challenge now, isn't it?
True.
Oh yeah, we're talking about battle cats. Still, I hope my words can shape you too, so that you will also believe in your own will, in your own power, in your own determination. You can tell that I might have been playing a little bit too much Deltarune, but anyways, listen, hope you learn a thing or two, whether it's about battle cats or about life. And I'll catch you another time. See ya.
Oh, that's not what I. Who is this guy's channel? What? Speed of Filibuster, crazy. Oh my god. Yeah, who's this loser? Yeah, okay, cool. That's it. Oh yeah, you guys want a fucking coin flip. So what? Yes is heads is yes, I think. Okay, chat. It's gonna be. Nah, we got to do it on the second one because I didn't even click to flip it that time, so that was just, It's got to be the second one. It's got to be the second one. Okay, it's heads still. Damn, nobody wanted to say no, even though everybody should have known it would have been a coin flip. Because, like, here's the thing, right? Predictions are supposed to predict what happens in the future. They're not supposed to be questions. That's what a poll is for. But anyways, YouTube, if you did enjoy, please do come back for more. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.